The mortgage lights flickered red. Sarah, a 48-year-old graphic designer in Orlando, Florida, felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Unexpected medical bills from the previous year, coupled with imprudent credit card use to maintain appearances, had turned her American dream into a financial nightmare. She wasn't alone. Millions of Americans in midlife face the silent danger of indebtedness, where innocent debts become the first step toward financial collapse. This is the moment to learn how to identify traps, negotiate, and shield your financial future. The collection call was the 30th one that week. Mark, a 52-year-old former real estate agent in Phoenix, Arizona, felt sweat trickle down his forehead as his bank's name appeared on the caller ID. He ignored it. He had been doing that for months. Bankruptcy seemed like a distant word, something that happened to others. However, his savings account was empty, his credit card limit maxed out, and his overdraft had become his constant companion. The house, once his pride, was now a trap. The mortgage 3 months past due. He wondered how he had reached that point, immersed in a fog of denial and despair. Mark's story is not an isolated case. According to data from the American Bankruptcy Institute, hundreds of thousands of Americans file for bankruptcy each year, and a significant portion of them are in midlife. But how do you identify the signs before collapse is imminent? First, observe the constant increase in high-interest debts. Credit cards, personal loans, and abusive use of overdraft are the big villains. If you're only paying the minimum on your credit card and the balance barely decreases, or if your loans seem to multiply, it's a clear warning sign. Another crucial indicator is reliance on debt to cover basic expenses. If your salary can no longer cover household bills, food, and transportation, and you need to use a credit card or take out new loans to make ends meet, the scenario is worrying. The lack of an emergency fund is another critical factor. Without it, any unexpected financial event, such as an unforeseen medical expense or job loss, can push you into the abyss. Federal Reserve data indicates that a large portion of American families do not even have $400 for emergencies. Delays in essential bill payments, such as rent, mortgage, utility bills, and vehicle installments, are also unequivocal signs that something is wrong. When collection letters start arriving and calls intensify, the situation is escalating rapidly. Ignoring these warnings is like ignoring a fire alarm. The first step to recovery is honesty with yourself. Recognizing the problem and mapping the extent of your debts is painful but fundamental. For Mark, the turning point came when the bank's letter threatening foreclosure arrived. The fear was greater than the shame. He realized he needed to act. He started by listing all his debts, the creditors, and the interest rates for each. It was a shock, but also the first step to regaining control. The lesson is clear. Don't wait for disaster. Learn to recognize the signs, face financial reality, and seek help before it's too late. Bankruptcy is not just a legal term. It's the consequence of a series of financial decisions and omissions that, if identified in time, can be reversed. Emily, a 58-year-old teacher in Seattle, Washington, always believed she was doing everything right. She had a solid career, a retirement plan, and was never extravagant. However, over the past 5 years, her financial life had collapsed. First, it was her husband's unexpected illness, which generated thousands of dollars in medical bills not covered by insurance. Then, the mortgage, which seemed reasonable when purchased 20 years ago, became unsustainable with inflation and rising living costs. The final blow was the divorce and asset division, which left her with significant debt and without the expected resources. She felt ashamed and lost, not knowing how people like her ended up in such a situation. Emily's story reflects the main causes of personal bankruptcy in the United States, which go far beyond financial irresponsibility. Experts in studies point to complex and interconnected factors. Medical debt is, historically, one of the biggest culprits. Even with insurance, the costs of prolonged treatments, high-cost medications, and deductibles can quickly deplete a family's savings. A Harvard University study reveals that medical debt contributes to a significant percentage of bankruptcies in the U.S., often being the catalyst for the financial collapse of middle-class families. Another crucial factor is housing expenses. The cost of living in many American cities is exorbitant and high mortgages, along with rising property taxes and maintenance costs, can consume a large portion of family income. According to the Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard University, millions of Americans spend more than 30% of their income on housing, making them vulnerable to any economic fluctuation. Job loss or income reduction are also powerful triggers for bankruptcy. Even with unemployment insurance, the transition between jobs can be long and expensive, depleting financial reserves and leading to an inability to meet obligations. In addition to these factors, credit card debt and high-interest loans, often used to cover these unexpected expenses or monthly deficits, accelerate the downfall. The average credit card interest rate in the U.S. can easily exceed 20% per year, turning small purchases into unpayable mountains of debt. The lack of retirement and emergency planning also worsens the scenario, leaving individuals in midlife without a financial cushion when difficulties arise. For Emily, understanding these factors brought some relief, taking away some of the burden of guilt. She wasn't alone in her struggles. Millions of Americans face similar challenges. By seeking financial counseling, she discovered that while the causes were complex, there were paths to recovery. The expert's lesson is clear. Bankruptcy is rarely an isolated event, but rather the result of a combination of economic, social, and personal factors. Recognizing these causes is the first step toward prevention and the search for effective solutions, allowing individuals like Emily to rebuild their financial lives based on a deeper and more realistic understanding. David, a 55-year-old sales manager in Austin, Texas, felt trapped in a maze of debt. His company had undergone restructuring, and his income had significantly decreased. With 3 children in college and a heavy mortgage, he found himself drowning in overdue bills and calls from collectors. The shame was overwhelming, and he was on the verge of giving up. His wife, however, encouraged him to seek help. That's when he discovered that real, proven strategies existed to get out of that hole, and that he wouldn't have to face it all alone. The journey to financial recovery is challenging, but not impossible. The first, and one of the most crucial, steps is to create a detailed and realistic budget. According to the National Endowment for Financial Education, most people who get out of debt start with a clear financial plan. This means listing all sources of income and, more importantly, all expenses, fixed and variable. You need to be brutally honest about where your money is going. Identifying unnecessary spending is the first cut to be made, however small it may seem. Small daily savings can add up to significant amounts over time. Next comes debt prioritization. A common strategy is the debt snowball method, popularized by financial experts like Dave Ramsey. In this method, you list your debts from smallest to largest and focus on paying off the smallest first, while making minimum payments on the others. Once the smallest is paid off, you use the money you were dedicating to it for the next smallest, gaining momentum and motivation. Alternatively, there's the debt avalanche method, which prioritizes debts with the highest interest rates, saving more money in the long run. The choice depends on each individual's profile, but the important thing is to have a plan. Negotiation with creditors is another powerful tool. Many financial institutions are willing to work with you to create a more viable payment plan, especially if you are proactive and show willingness to pay off the debt. This can include reducing interest rates, extending the payment period, or even reducing the principal balance in some cases. Nonprofit credit counseling organizations, such as those certified by the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, NFCC, can be a valuable resource, helping to negotiate with creditors and create a debt management plan. For David, the turning point began when he and his wife sat down and made a budget. It was painful to see how much they were spending on unnecessary things. They cut subscriptions, reduced outings, and sold some items they no longer used. With the help of a credit counseling agency, David was able to consolidate some of his credit card debts into a loan with lower interest and a fixed term. The plan was difficult, but the feeling of having a path forward was liberating. Financial recovery is a gradual process that requires discipline and patience. But with the right strategies and unwavering commitment, it is possible to climb out of the hole and rebuild a solid foundation. Sarah, a 45-year-old nurse in Denver, Colorado, watched with apprehension her mother Martha's bank statements. Martha, a 70-year-old woman, found herself in a spiral of credit card debt after her father's death. Martha had always been careful with money, but a lack of familiarity with modern finances and loneliness led her to costly mistakes. Sarah realized that many of her mother's financial problems, and even her own in the past, could have been avoided with a deeper understanding of how money truly works. The transformative power of financial education was evident, and how its absence could lead to devastating financial traps. Financial education is not a luxury, but a fundamental necessity in adult life, especially in midlife, when risks become greater and consequences more severe. One of the most common mistakes that financial education helps avoid is the accumulation of high-interest debt. Many consumers in the U.S. do not fully understand how compound interest works on credit cards or personal loans, which leads them to paying much more than the original amount owed. Knowing how to calculate the true cost of a debt, understanding interest rates, and prioritizing high-cost payments is vital. The Federal Reserve, through its research, frequently points to a lack of knowledge about interest as a contributing factor to indebtedness. Another frequent mistake is the absence of an emergency fund. Life is unpredictable, and unexpected expenses, such as health problems, car repairs, or job loss, can arise at any time. Without a financial reserve, people are forced to resort to expensive debt to cover these expenses, starting a vicious cycle. Experts recommend having 3 to 6 months of basic expenses saved in an easily accessible account. Financial education teaches the importance of this saving and how to build it gradually. Impulsiveness in spending and the lack of a budget are also common traps. Excessive consumption, often driven by aggressive marketing and the having culture, leads to unnecessary spending that compromises the family budget. Financial education teaches how to distinguish between needs and wants, to create a realistic budget and to stick to it. It also demystifies the world of investments, helping to avoid fraudulent schemes and make sensible choices for the future, protecting assets and planning for retirement effectively. For Sarah, understanding these principles was a game changer. She began to educate her mother on how to use her credit card responsibly, the importance of paying the full balance, and how to identify hidden fees and charges. Together, they created a simple budget and a plan to pay off the debts. Financial education is not just about numbers. It's about empowering individuals to make informed decisions, build resilience, and avoid the traps that can lead to bankruptcy. It is the most powerful tool to ensure a secure and prosperous financial future. James, a 62-year-old retired engineer in Miami, Florida, thought his financial life was settled. However, rising inflation and increasing healthcare costs quickly eroded his savings. Retirement, which once seemed comfortable, now proved insufficient. He saw many friends in the same situation, some even returning to work part-time jobs. James didn't want to rely solely on his pension and began exploring ways to increase his income and make his money work harder. Realizing that, even in midlife, it was possible to diversify and strengthen his financial position. The pursuit of extra income and the practice of smart investments become essential, especially in midlife, when there is less time to recover losses and financial security becomes a priority. One of the most effective strategies for generating extra income is to explore skills and hobbies that can be monetized. For example, James had experience in electronic repairs and began offering his services to neighbors and acquaintances. Online platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, or Airbnb, for those with an extra room or property, offer various opportunities for freelancers and small entrepreneurs. Part-time jobs or consulting in your area of expertise are also viable options to supplement retirement income or your main job. In the field of investments, the keyword is diversification and calculated risk. In midlife, the approach should be more conservative than in youth, focusing on capital preservation and generating passive income. Dividend investments, such as shares in solid companies that pay regular dividends or real estate investment trusts, REITs, can generate a steady stream of income. Low-cost index funds, ETFs, or mutual funds that replicate the performance of a broad market are also smart options for diversifying without needing extensive specific market knowledge. The ideal is to seek guidance from a certified financial planner who can help create an investment portfolio aligned with your goals and risk tolerance. Another crucial strategy is optimizing existing assets. This can include renegotiating loans and mortgage to obtain lower interest rates, which frees up money for other purposes. Additionally, reviewing insurance, cell phone plans, and other recurring expenses can generate significant savings. For James, this optimization meant reviewing his health plan, finding a more economical option that still met his needs, and refinancing his mortgage, reducing his monthly payment. He also began investing a small portion of his savings in a dividend ETF, noticing the potential for his income to grow. James's lesson is that proactivity is fundamental. Midlife is not the end of the financial journey, but a crucial time to consolidate what has been built and seek new opportunities. Whether through creative extra income or well-planned investments, the goal is to strengthen financial security, allowing you to enjoy life without the constant burden of financial worries. Lisa, a 50-year-old librarian in Portland, Oregon, had managed to break free from a cycle of credit card debt and reorganize her finances after years of stress. She felt relieved, but also knew the journey didn't end there. Recovery was one step, but maintaining financial health required constant vigilance and a commitment to solid habits. She no longer wanted to relive the anguish of indebtedness and was determined to build a financially secure and sustainable future, not just for herself, but as a legacy for her daughter. Staying financially secure is a continuous process that involves discipline, planning, and the adoption of healthy long-term habits. One of the most important pillars is periodic budget review. A budget is not a static document. It needs to be adjusted as income and expenses change. Lisa began reviewing her budget every 3 months, adapting it to new realities, such as a salary increase or an unexpected expense. This practice allows for quick identification of deviations and corrections before small problems turn into major crises. Another crucial habit is the maintenance and growth of the emergency fund. Having a robust financial reserve is the first line of defense against unforeseen events. Lisa, after paying off her debts, prioritized rebuilding her emergency fund, ensuring she had at least 6 months of basic expenses saved. She knew this reserve would give her peace of mind and prevent her from resorting to debt in times of need. The importance of consistent saving, even in small amounts, cannot be overstated. Continued financial education is vital. The financial world is constantly changing, with new technologies, products, and challenges. Staying informed about personal finance, market trends, and new investment strategies is fundamental. Lisa began reading books on low-risk investments and following reliable financial news sources, expanding her knowledge beyond the basics. This continuous learning helped her make more informed decisions and avoid falling into traps. Finally, long-term planning is the key to a sustainable future. This includes planning for retirement, considering estate succession, and ensuring your loved ones are protected. Investing in a retirement plan, such as a 401(k) or IRA, and maximizing contributions is essential. Additionally, having an up-to-date will and estate plan ensures your wishes are met and avoids problems for your family in the future. Regular consultation with a financial planner can be a valuable investment to ensure all these aspects are aligned. Lisa's story shows that financial security is not a destination, but a journey. It is an ongoing commitment to discipline, learning, and planning. By adopting these habits and strategies, anyone can build a financially solid future, resilient to crises, and capable of providing peace of mind, enjoying the tranquility that comes from a well-managed financial life.